Mint.com is shutting down on January 1st. As a financial planner, I can tell you that managing your cash flow is the most important part of financial security and independence. So if you've been using Mint, or if you're just starting your search for a budgeting app today, this video is for you, because we're going to talk about the best budgeting app to help you manage your income and expenses. I'm Jordan Nitzel, the founder of Trek Wealth Planning, and we help you make smarter money decisions. I'm going to get to my favorite budgeting app, but first I need to set the stage and explain how I think a budget should work. I actually don't love the word budget. A budget is restricting. Budget-friendly options are always the cheapest options. Being on a budget is like being on a diet, and I don't think most people are excited about being on a diet. So I prefer to use the term spending plan, because that's what a budget should be. We're planning for how I'll spend our money, and that is exciting. I think this topic, more than any other, brings a sense of shame for a lot of people. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say in our first or second meeting something along the lines of, I know I'm spending too much money. A lot of the personal finance gurus out there make us feel bad if we buy a $6 latte at a coffee shop. Because if you just saved that $6, then in 50 years, it would be worth some absurd amount of money. But me personally, I'd rather have the latte. But if I don't have a spending plan, then I don't really know whether I can afford it or not. So I'm gonna feel a little bit of guilt every time I spend money on something that's not 100% necessary. But having a plan in place can reduce those feelings of guilt because you've planned for the spending that's important to you. A spending plan or budget is so vital for every aspect of your financial life. You need to know how much money you're spending and have a rough idea of what you're spending it on. Those numbers are gonna be the foundation for how much you can save, how much you need to retire, and then when you can get there. A spending plan doesn't always mean reducing your spending. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it's about reconfiguring your spending so that you're spending more money on the things that you value most and less on the other stuff. The goal of a spending plan is to give you freedom to spend without guilt within the confines of your plan. With all that in mind, the app that's best suited to help you do this, in my opinion, is YNAB. YNAB is short for You Need a Budget, and it's different than most other budgeting apps. It's what's known as a zero-based budgeting system, which basically means that you're giving every dollar of your income a job. Now that job could be spending, it could be saving, or it could be paying down debt. The idea is that you're being intentional with every dollar of income rather than retroactively figuring out where it went. There's a budgeting strategy you may have heard of called the envelope system. Recently, I've also heard it referred to as cash stuffing, but the gist of it is that you have these envelopes for each category of spending. So you'd have a grocery envelope, a restaurant's envelope, you'd have a fun money envelope, and on and on. Then you turn your paychecks into physical cash and you allocate it to the different envelopes. When it's time to go to the grocery store, you take your grocery envelope with you, and whatever's in there is what you have to spend. I mentioned this strategy because YNAB is basically a digital version of that. Rather than physical cash and physical envelopes, you're allocating dollars in your bank account to the various categories. Most budgeting apps are what I would call expense trackers. They allow you to see what you've spent money on, which is helpful, but they aren't great at planning for that spending ahead of time. YNAB, though, is different. It's about planning for where your money should go before you even spend it. Being proactive like this lets you take control of your spending rather than just tracking your overspending after the fact. Let's take a look so you can see how this works. With YNAB, you can link your bank accounts and credit cards so transactions pull into YNAB automatically. But I just have an example budget here, so I've manually added these accounts. And with these balances, I need to assign those dollars to my various envelopes or spending categories. And you'll see the amount I need to assign up here, and it matches the total dollar amount in my bank accounts over here. Now I have my budget for each category already filled out over here, and I can start putting money into the various categories. So to do that, I'm just gonna type in here, for example, for my mortgage payment, I need $2,100. So I'm gonna put that in there, and then you'll see my available amount over here grew to reflect the $2,100 that I just put in. And once I've done that, you can see over here on the right how much money I have available in each category. So when I go to the grocery store, I know that I still have $600 this month to spend on groceries. Now, when I spend money, those transactions would pull through automatically if I had my accounts linked, but I just manually added this transaction in here so we can see how this works. I spent $120 at the grocery store, and so I can go back to my budget and I can see, okay, now $120 came out of that grocery budget, and I only have $480 left to spend this month. Now when I get paid, again, if my accounts are linked, that transaction will pull through automatically, and those dollars are gonna go up here into ready to assign. So again, I just added one manually so you can see how this works, but now I have $2,000 from my paycheck that I can assign to the various categories. The thing that makes YNAB a game changer, in my opinion, is what they call embracing your true expenses. This means planning and budgeting for the infrequent, non-monthly expenses. The month-to-month expenses are pretty straightforward, and they aren't usually what gets most people into trouble. I go to the grocery store every week, and each month I spend a similar amount there. The same could be said for things like your mortgage, eating out, utilities, and other random household items. All budgeting apps can handle these things pretty well, but the thing that trips people up and that most budgeting apps are not equipped to deal with are things like vacations, car repairs, and home renovations. These are the things we know are gonna happen, so they aren't a surprise, but we don't think to budget for them because they don't show up every month. And this is where YNAB shines. Because with YNAB, I can create a category for these infrequent expenses, and I can assign dollars to that category every month. Then when an expense happens, I'll already have money set aside to pay for it, so it doesn't break the bank. So if we go back to our budget, you can see I have categories here for those non-monthly expenses. Home maintenance, auto maintenance, gifts, and then vacation down here. And let's say I expect to spend an average of $3,600 each year on home maintenance costs. Some years, of course, might be less. Some years might be a lot more if I need to replace my AC or something like that. But over here on the right, you can see that I'm putting $300 aside every single month towards home maintenance costs, which over the course of a full year would be $3,600. Now I've already funded this category this month for $300, but if we go into next month, it's gonna say that I need to add $300 more to this category, even though I didn't spend anything on home maintenance last month. And so I'm putting money aside every single month for home maintenance, so when those expenses do pop up, I'm prepared. The way I would recommend using YNAB is to create your spending plan outside of YNAB, but then use YNAB to track it. So I use a simple spreadsheet to create the spending plan, but with this, I can make sure that my income can support the dollars that I'm gonna allocate to the various categories in YNAB each month. Then I'll put the numbers into YNAB and track everything from there. I will say there is a bit of a learning curve with YNAB. It's a different way of thinking about your money and your spending, but they have some really good resources to help you as you get comfortable with it, including a great YouTube channel. YNAB also offers a 34-day free trial, and you don't even have to enter your payment information. To me, that tells you that they're not counting on people just forgetting to unsubscribe, but they actually believe that once you've tried YNAB for a month, you'll want to continue. And I would agree. I hope this video was helpful. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I have new videos coming out every week going over financial planning strategies to help you make smarter money decisions.